Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight, Donald Trump has surrendered in Georgia in his fourth criminal case of the year. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The former president arrived by motorcade to the Fulton County Jail. He was arrested and booked on charges related to his efforts to overturn his 2020 election defeat in the state. Ahead of Trump's arrival, his former chief of staff and co-defendant reported to the same Atlanta jail for his own arrest. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
Authorities in Fulton County, Georgia are preparing for the arrival of former President Donald Trump, expected to turn himself in Thursday evening. Trump is accused of being the head of a criminal enterprise that was part of a broad criminal conspiracy to overturn his electoral defeat in Georgia. The other 18 defendants include former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and ex-Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani. The former president faces 91 charges across 4 separate criminal cases. In Atlanta, extra security precautions will be taken when he arrives at the jail.
He will be coming into a secure arrival point. There won't be any other prisoners. There won't be any extemporaneous jail employees.
On the GOP debate stage in Milwaukee Wednesday night, candidates were asked if they'd support Donald Trump, even if he's eventually convicted. All but 2 raised their hands. One who did, former Vice President Mike Pence.
Every one of us on the stage signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and frankly, my hand was raised in that spirit, just in keeping my word.
One who did not, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Character matters, the truth matters, and that his conduct is below, well below, what we should expect from a president of the United States.
Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
A San Diego-based developer wants to convert the city-owned office building at 101 Ash Street into affordable housing. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has the story.
101 Ash has become synonymous with political scandals and bad real estate deals. The city overpaid for the downtown high-rise in 2016. It then botched renovations and discovered the city's own broker had also been working for the building's seller. But despite its toxic history, real estate firm Revan Capital hopes to gut the building and turn it into nearly 400 units of affordable housing. Stephen Russell of the nonprofit San Diego Housing Federation says downtown has thousands of low-wage jobs in tourism and hospitality, and those workers need more housing options.
I think that if we can get more affordable housing there, so the folks who are actually working in those towers, who are actually servicing the people who work in those towers, or can benefit, like many of the seniors do down there, from being close to activities, social activities, all of that. I'm actually really excited about the future for the center.
Converting office buildings to housing is easier said than done. The building's asbestos will have to be removed, and it needs new electrical, HVAC, and plumbing systems. But Russell says from an environmental standpoint, reusing a high-rise is better than tearing it down and building something new.
Notwithstanding the fact that it's gotten a bad reputation because of the politics surrounding it, it is actually an extraordinary building with great bones, very dignified facade. I mean, it is representative of a very particular era in San Diego's history in the mid-'60s, when we were really striving to be something more.
Big questions remain. How will the project be financed? Will the deal be a net loss for city taxpayers? And if so, is the gain in affordable housing worth that cost? The city and Revan Capital will soon kick off a 90-day negotiating period to try and strike a deal, which would ultimately need the approval of the city council. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The regional task force has begun publishing progress reports on veteran homelessness in San Diego County with the goal on reducing it to zero. The first of the monthly reports released today shows the number of homeless veterans placed in housing needs to increase from 70 to 77 per month to meet functional zero goals. Functional zero means homelessness is prevented by services and rare and brief when it does occur. Based on the report, the region could meet its goal in 13 months to house the nearly 800 homeless veterans in the area. Oceanside's first homeless shelter is officially housing new residents. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says there is space for single men and women as well as for families.
It's been a week of people coming to San Diego Rescue Mission's new navigation center in North County. The homeless shelter is a first for Oceanside. So far, it's housing about 15 residents.
They come to this room after they've been admitted, and they get sheets, they get a blanket, they get a pillow, they get hygiene material, and they get the opportunity after they shower to get new shoes, new clothing.
Donnie D is the head of the San Diego Rescue Mission, the organization contracted by the city of Oceanside to run the shelter program. He says the site is not a walk-up facility. People will be referred to the center for 30-day stays.
And so last Thursday we started admitting guests, is what we call them, right from the streets, either the Oceanside Police Department dropping them off or they're coming from our shower trailer outreach unit.
There is some skepticism about the new facility among Oceanside's homeless population. This man, who would not tell us his real name, grew up in Oceanside and is now homeless, living near the service provider Brother Benno's. He didn't want to show his face on camera.
I've heard mixed things about what kind of help they actually offer. You know, like they like to they like to take people in, but they also push them away.
He's referring to the 30-day limit of the facility, but D says almost anyone can stay there, including single men and women as well as families. And there's no faith-based component required at the North County shelter, and they welcome all people.
They're receiving a safe place to sleep. They're receiving the opportunity to use our facilities, our shower, our day center, the computers, things like that. They are receiving 3 meals a day. And they're also being asked, they're required to see a case manager. And it's through that case management that we figure out where you go next. This is short-term housing. We don't think you're going to be here longer than 30 days.
The goal is to increase the center's residents to 50 people over the next month. D says the Navigation Center has capacity for 100 people at once, which is their long-term goal. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
After 4 seasons, the San Diego Loyal Soccer Club is calling it quits at the end of its current season. KPBS reporter and Loyal supporter Andrew Dyer spoke with the president of one of the club's supporter groups for some fan reaction.
Members of the San Diego Loyal small but passionate fan base are reeling today with the announcement that the club will fold at the end of this season. The team is in the midst of a playoff race in the competitive Western Conference of the USL Championship, the second division in the U.S. soccer pyramid.
It's just been heartbreak. It's crushing. You know, there's really no other way to say it.
Steve Brockhoff is the president and co-founder of the Locals, the team's largest supporters group. At every Loyal home game, supporters can be seen and heard singing, chanting, and drumming throughout the game. Win or lose without stopping. Brockhoff says the team's public actions against racism and in support of the LGBTQ community has connected with fans beyond the pitch. In 2020, the team refused to continue a game they were winning after a player on the other team used a homophobic slur against midfielder Colin Martin, an openly gay player. The team walked off the field and forfeited the match and a potential playoff spot.
When they walked off the field, and to me, that's when it changed from this yeah, you know, this is the club I support to that's my club. That's my club. That's who I represent. They represent me because that's not something that other teams do.
San Diego Loyal will finish its season this fall at Torero Stadium. It's home for the last 4 seasons. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
The human toll from the wildfires in Maui is still being assessed, as is the toll on pets in the Lahaina area. Help for animals is coming from right here in San Diego. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us how a local animal shelter is relieving the stress on Maui shelters.
Over the last couple of nights, some very special Hawaiians have been arriving at San Diego International Airport, refugees of the 4-legged variety.
After the fire, we knew that adoption rates were going to plummet.
That's Monica Petrozelli from the Helen Woodward Animal Center in Rancho Santa Fe. She's holding Buddy. Petrozelli says Woodward has a long working relationship with colleagues at the Hawaii Animal Rescue Foundation.
We knew that they were going to be over capacity with these pets who have been found lost, injured.
But the 10-plus dogs now at Helen Woodward are not those lost and injured pets. Petrozelli says it was apparent from the start that the shelters in Maui would quickly be over capacity with those animals that found themselves homeless.
What our partners needed the most when we asked them was space. They are currently trying to build makeshift kennels because they're out of room.
The final flight of refugees will arrive tonight. That group will consist of felines, but for now, the canine arrivals are being assessed, getting everything they need.
I checked to see if there's any nasal ocular discharge.
Brianne Snedden is a member of the Woodward medical team.
This one would pass. It does have a little bit of debris in the ear, so we would do an ear cleaning.
Getting these animals to San Diego is a group effort. Alaska Airlines is flying them here for free. Petrozelli says Woodward is getting financial help from the Lewitt and San Diego foundations. The dogs and soon-to-arrive cats will all be here until at least September 5th, when they will start to be put up for adoption.
On a wall in the Helen Woodward lobby, there are plaques, tributes to our four-legged friends, and there is the Helen Woodward slogan, people helping animals and animals helping people. You'll notice it starts and ends with us. So please consider adopting one of these Maui refugees or any one of the other hundreds of dogs and cats here that need a loving home. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A boil water advisory is in effect for residents near Silver Strand and Coronado and Imperial Beach. Earlier, the county said the advisory was issued because of the drinking water system tested present for E. coli, but it's unclear if that is the reason. Affected customers will be contacted directly by Cal American Water Company with some additional information. 1 in 13 U.S. adults reported having COVID symptoms lasting 3 or more months, and that's according to a survey by the National Center for Health Statistics. And new research suggests early in the pandemic, millions who tested negative for COVID might have had what's known as long COVID. Mandy Gaither reports.
For those with long COVID, symptoms can linger for weeks, months, even years after first onset of the disease.
So this greatly impacts patients' quality of life as well as their cognitive function.
Dr. Igor Koralnik with Northwestern Medicine says at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, swab testing was limited and blood tests weren't as advanced. So he says many people had symptoms of the disease and developed long COVID, but couldn't be tested in time to get a positive test result or got a negative result despite having the disease.
We made the conscious decision to accept those patients who did not have a positive COVID diagnosis in our clinic.
In research published this week, Koralnik says blood was tested from 29 patients who were negative for COVID but showed long COVID symptoms. Researchers were looking for 2 proteins associated with the coronavirus that causes COVID-19, and they say 41% of those tested had evidence of exposure to that virus.
It is really vindicating for those patients to know that. Those patients deserve the same care as those who test positive for COVID-19, and they also deserve to be enrolled in research studies.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Some of the most common long COVID symptoms are brain fog, problems with taste and smell, muscle pain, and intense fatigue.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, former President Trump is booked at a Georgia jail for charges relating to the 2020 election. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
This year, more shoppers are choosing electric vehicles than ever before, and that's according to sales data from Cox Automotive. Cole Higgins explains what's behind the rise in sales and what to know if you're in the market for an EV.
A driving force for the future, sales of electric cars in the U.S. are breaking records, and experts say it's just the beginning.
Folks should fasten their seatbelts because this electric future is taking off.
The EV transition is underway.
According to Cox Automotive, U.S. consumers bought nearly 300,000 new battery electric vehicles in the second quarter of 2023, setting a record. That's more than 48% higher than the same time last year, and more EVs than were sold in all of 2019. Cox Automotive predicts sales of fully electric vehicles in the U.S. will break 1 million vehicles in 2023 for the first time.
We're starting to see those electric vehicle sales numbers grow already. So we anticipate that all of this will line up.
So what's driving sales? Experts say several factors, like price cuts, a wider variety of available vehicles, and more government and manufacturing investments, plus tax credits. Experts say the EPA's proposed auto emission rules could help electric vehicles account for up to 2/3 of new vehicles sold in the U.S. by 2032.
These rules are really, meant to help push the auto industry, provide some of that certainty so we can get the investments in manufacturing and infrastructure that'll help build out, the supply of those vehicles.
If you're in the market for an electric car, remember that through the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal government is now offering tax credits of up to $7,500 on some EVs. And Cox Automotive says this year's top-selling EVs are all among the 18% that qualify for at least some of that tax credit. For Consumer Watch, I'm Cole Higgins.
According to a Cox Automotive survey, the second biggest concern for consumers after price was a lack of access to charging stations. Demand pushed summer airfares higher, and as travelers look for one last summer getaway, they may seek some relief. A popular airfare hack has recently been in the spotlight for potential savings, but as Karen Kafa reports, experts say it's not worth it.
For air travelers, a direct flight isn't always the cheapest route.
Travelers tend to want shorter itineraries, so they're willing to pay more for direct flights.
That's left some passengers tempted to try a risky travel hack called skip lagging or hidden city ticketing. It's when a passenger purchases a cheaper ticket with a connection in their desired destination city and they skip out on the final leg.
You notice that if you book a trip actually to Orlando with a stop in Miami, you can get that ticket for $80. So you're potentially saving money, and what you would do is you would just get off the plane in Miami when it stopped there and give up the rest of the ticket onto Orlando.
It's not illegal, but Katie Nastro, travel expert for Going, says it can be a violation of your contract of carriage with the airline. The fine print on a ticket that outlines your passenger rights and responsibilities.
If they were aware that you weren't traveling onwards, that's a seat that could potentially have gotten sold to another customer.
Clint Henderson, managing editor of The Points Guy, says airlines have ways to punish passengers who are caught.
They can close your frequent flyer account. They could kick you off the flight potentially and make you buy a last-minute one-way fare, or they could ban you from the airline.
It's especially tricky during unpredictable summer travel, where a weather diversion could take you further off course and cost you more than you saved. In New York, I'm Karen Kafa.
Some big changes are on the horizon for businesses in Oceanside. Last night, the City Council unanimously voted in favor of a single-use plastics ban. Under the ordinance, styrofoam would be prohibited in Oceanside starting July of 2024. And then by January of 2025, single-use plastics will also be banned. Main Street Oceanside oversees businesses in downtown Oceanside, and it is in charge of educating businesses about the new rules.
We hope that this improves, the quality of life in our city. A lot of people, just take food home and throw it in the garbage. Maybe this is, there needs to reconsider what they do.
And if a store provides plastic bags, then customers will have to pay 10 cents to purchase them. The county says San Diegans used over 100,000 sandbags to fortify their homes ahead of Tropical Storm Hillary. But what should those people do with those sandbags now? Well, the county suggests keeping them to reuse. They can be stored filled or emptied. If used, sandbags aren't contaminated with dirty water or chemicals, then you can add that sand to the soil. And if you cannot reuse the sand or the sandbags at home, or if they are contaminated, you can take them directly to select landfills. But you should call the landfill beforehand.
We're glad that you're joining us here for this update on KPBS and looking at the forecast for the next few days. It's going to turn warmer. The heat builds for the afternoon and evening hours over the course of the weekend. And by the time we get into next week, especially Tuesday, scorching late summer heat will be on the map across the interior areas. And the recovery does continue, tied to that flooding rain in some inland areas, as it's been a tough stretch here at times over the past 4 or 5 days in the wake of Hillary. Take a look at this. This is remarkable how wet we've been. We've had 1.84 inches of rain so far this month, and we averaged 1/100th of an inch of rain. LA, almost 3 inches. They have a trace as the average. Salt Lake City, way above average, too. On the other hand, areas that frequently see between 4 and 6+ inches of rain in a typical August. Lake Charles, Louisiana, they're no stranger to thunderstorms typically. Houston and Jackson, Mississippi as well. Those areas have only seen a trace, so it's kind of like we reversed roles here this month in some form. And they've been baking in the heat. Tonight, 65 for your low. Some low clouds will be returning to the coastal areas. Futurecast doesn't really show too many hurdles for us. Bright day tomorrow. Don't forget the sunscreen. There you can see some of the monsoon moisture sparking some scattered thunderstorms over northern Arizona. Probably not going to see much on the California side. So just a bright, dry day. We're going to have some local clouds for the coastline. 85 at El Cajon, 89 Ramona, 104 in Borrego Springs, but that's just the beginning. We're going to heat up in a big way into next week. For coastal areas, we're going to gain about 9 degrees from Friday to 84 on Tuesday and Monday for that matter, too. Then it gets more dramatic as we step inland. Low 80s Friday, beautiful day for the inland areas tomorrow, but look at this, 96, 97 on Monday. Good deal of sunshine. Into the mountains we go. This is going to be a place to find relief next week, as we do stay cool elevation on our side here into Monday and Tuesday. But into the deserts, here's where the heat really, really builds. We go from 104 on Friday to about 111 on Monday. And it's going to be hot into Tuesday as well. Again, stay prepared for the heat, and you want to stay ahead of that. Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
A bit of heartbreak today for the kids from Tijuana who hope to return as Little League World Series champs. They met their match today in Williamsport, losing to the team from the Caribbean. Final score was 4-1. Team Mexico made it all the way to the semifinals of the international bracket. They have plenty to be proud of, though, making it farther than any team from Mexico in the past 10 years. Go to San Diego County's Waterfront Park and you'll see a bright colored mural showing a sunflower, a bird, and a wheelchair. The message is inclusion. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge tells us how this public art reflects the people who created it.
It's a gorgeous day at the Bayfront Park next door to the county building downtown. This is a place where kids can ride a swing, get very wet, and see public art. Like this statue, number 19 baseball player by Nicky de Sanfal. And also a new mural painted earlier this summer.
See it all the way getting from the trolley station and walking up. You can see it from a lot of different angles, and it just draws people in. I think it brings joy and a feeling of like happiness, which we could all use a little bit more of that in our day.
Hannah Gundrum is an artist who works with a San Diego nonprofit called Revision. There, she coaches aspiring artists who are on the autism spectrum, and she worked with them to create this piece of public art. She created a mural design that she projected on the wall one night and outlined the forms. People working with Revision came the following day and filled in the colors. But before that, Gundrum got ideas from lots of people about what images would present the right story and message. Jack Medved came up with the ideas for the sunflower and the pot that it's in.
It kind of represents something very important. Inclusion for others, a great way to respect the circle of life. Well, something like that.
Medved is a person with autism. Some of his paintings are on display at a downtown coffee shop next to Pokey's restaurant. Revision founder and director Joy Bow calls art a unifying force because it doesn't completely reveal the person behind it.
When you see a beautiful piece of art, you don't necessarily think who would have created this? What type of person is behind this? You immediately have a reaction to the art itself. So the person comes secondary to the experience that you're having when you're viewing art.
Therefore, she says, with art you judge the creation. You don't really judge the artist or their personality. She likes to use the expression neurodiversity when talking about people on the autism spectrum.
A lot of times people cannot communicate typically through speech and language, but they might have a gift of objects. They might have a gift of piecing items together, creating a sculpture or putting colors together really beautifully. And to me, that's a form of communication as well.
Everybody has a blessing. Not every artist is the same here. We are all blessed with unique gifts and talents, and it doesn't matter what colors you choose, and no wrong place or right place to start.
Because the mural sits in a very popular waterfront park, it'll be seen by lots of people, from families to tourists to people who are homeless. Gundrum hopes they all remember something good.
We don't know people's histories. We don't know where they've been. We don't know what their struggles or their triumphs might be. And with Waterfront Park, especially being such a community-oriented space with so many different types of people coming here to enjoy the city and the park, just letting people know that they're welcomed and that they belong and that they're cared about, essentially.
The sign language on the left side of the painting says, "I love you." The figure-8 infinity symbol on the right-hand corner has become a symbol for people with autism. Bo says it represents the spectrum and the possibilities that people continue to have in their lives. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
And this story is part of an ongoing series about public art in the San Diego region. You can find more of our stories at kpbs.org/publicart. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.